provisions of the Open Meeting Law GL 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order, imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Medfield Warrant Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. As a reminder, persons who would like to listen to or view this meeting while in progress may do so by following the instructions on the agenda and meeting notice. Okay, so we'll do a quick roll call. If I can get you guys back up on my screen. I am Sharon Tatro. Bob.
I am Bob Swiney.
Ed.
I'm Ed Bozzella.
Jeremy.
Jeremy Marset.
Newton.
I'm Newton Thompson.
And Christine.
Christine Barton.
Okay. So I don't know, Jeremy, did you want to do your personal administration one you sent around real quick first, and then we can talk about
Sure. So sent that around to you folks. It's the Personnel Board Administration Plan. What was sent around represents a 2% increase from FY20. If you will recall, last year, for the current fiscal year, FY21, there was no change to the pay plan, but for FY22, the Personnel Board has recommended and approved a 2% increase for the pay plan. And that's reflected in what I sent around to you folks.
Cool. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
Concerns or anything? All right. Do we want to do a motion?
I'll move favorable action on the Personnel Board pay plan as provided by the Town Administrator.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Okay. So
Question?
Ed. Oh yeah. Go ahead, Newton. Sorry.
Is this Article 6?
Article 6.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So Ed,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Newton,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. Did we have anything else we were going to try to vote on before other than the budget, Christine or Nick, or was that it? I think, right? Because we had an operating budget and water
Yeah, we're gonna
sewer
hold,
budget.
yeah, we're gonna hold the enterprise budget because we're still getting some final information from them on the operating budget. But I think just the operating budget was the only thing we had left.
Okay. And we did the collective bargaining agreements last
Correct.
time, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just did put the wrong information in here.
Can I give a
Okay.
quick update on the Peak House,
Yeah. Sure. Go
I
ahead.
talked to Michael Taylor and he is not meeting with his committee until the 7th. So he's asking if he could just delay coming to the warrant committee until either after he meets with his committee, because they might just withdraw the article, or if they decide to move forward, they have to have a public hearing, and they kind of want to see how the public hearing plays out with any kind of a butter comments. And I think they're thinking that they may withdraw, but they just want
Okay.
to play it out a little bit. So we might have to push them out until maybe even the end of April. So
Okay.
he said he'd keep in touch with me.
Well, we can tentatively say that we would do his on the 26th of April, which would be the last meeting. And then if we need to push him out to the first week of May, then we could.
Okay, I thought I saw it on the 5th on your.
I did, but I'm just
spreadsheet.
saying, but we could push it out. You want to push it out from the
Yeah,
5th? Yeah. Yeah. So why don't we
Okay.
push it out to the 26th?
Okay,
Just because we're gonna do the name is
The
escaping me.
schools.
The schools. We're doing
On
the
the
schools
12th.
on the 12th. Yeah, exactly. And that'll probably
and
fill it
then
up.
just an update on the $20,000 zoning diagnostic. I talked to Sarah Raposa and I just explained to her how we were all supportive of her proposal, but just because the budget is so tight this year that, is there another kind of source of funding, either through grants or the stimulus? And she was completely like understanding, and she understands, and
That's
she
good.
acknowledges our position and stuff. So she's going to talk to Christine about whether they're going to withdraw it or not. So I think they're going to have a meeting and then they'll probably just withdraw it. But she said she'll talk to you about it, Christine.
I talked to her and I withdrew it.
Oh, okay, great.
There we go. Already done.
Yeah.
I happened to run into Teresa at the election as well and explained it to her and just said, I would rather withdraw the article if you want to take a formal vote after withdraw, but I would rather withdraw it than have the warrant committee recommend dismissal, because I don't want people to think that it's because we weren't,
Supportive of it. Yeah.
supportive of
Yeah.
the article, just not for this year. So
Right.
she agreed that was a better move. And I believe Nick is working with Sarah on some grants, applying for that as well. So
Okay,
cool.
good.
the whole year for that.
Sounds good.
Great.
All right. So the budget, do Christine or Nick, you guys want to talk at all about what that?
Yeah, let me just, so this is very similar to the budget you have been seeing for the last few meetings. I know several of you reached out to us today about some concerns about your department that you're managing budget has changed, but just as a reminder, we were carrying the 2% COLA that Jeremy was just talking about. We were carrying that as a lump sum in the HR budget, and that has since been allocated. Andrew and Joy allocated that to each individual budget. So if you see a change in your budget, that is the reason for that. We've also allocated any of the contracts that the selectmen have voted in the last month have all been allocated within this budget as well. So I think just in essence, for time, is it easier for us to just take questions if anybody has any questions at this point? That's why things have changed rather than go each line item, but that's up to you.
I'm fine with that.
I'd just like to go over the free cash, that schedule you sent on free cash.
Sure.
So that's Sharon's schedule, correct? Free cash.
It was
So I-
my
so I
old
have a
one, but Nick made them all. All of these are
Okay.
Nick's schedules.
So I have
So
a question. Nick, you did get back to me. Thank you, regarding the highway department budget increasing 100K for the hospital maintenance. Is that correct? It's hospital maintenance 100K. Was that a reduction overall for the town in maintenance at the hospital? Was that a higher number? Or was it just shunted into the highway budget?
We moved it. So in the past, that's been a special article for maintenance, for care and control of the state hospital. We have not done it the last few years because we have been living off the X-Men movie in our revolving fund. And we will, by the end of this year, have expended almost all of that. So in the past, we have done, I believe it was $150,000 appropriation for maintenance when we did the special article. But given our financial straits when we were putting this budget together, we went with the 100,000. And then the selectmen asked Nick and I to put that in the operating budget as an annual cost rather than a special article.
I remember when this first came up, there was some talk that you had to get Mo's buy-in because it would involve his crew, and maybe it already involves his crew, but
So where we've left that is that we have not made a policy decision on whether or not we will continue to utilize a contractor for that, or if we will utilize the DPW department. But the amount of money isn't going to change at this point. We haven't made that decision, so I wanted to leave it at $100,000.
okay, up to this point, and this is my last question.
Yeah.
Has it been a contractor at the hospital maintaining the grounds?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
I should say that for snow removal, we do use the DPW, but for any sort of grounds maintenance, we use an outside contractor.
And Christine, who manages that? Will that be now managed under Mo?
I think we'll, at this point, if we're going to continue with a contractor, we'll use the same process we have now where I sign off on the invoices as they come in. But as you know, Mo's in my office every day. We work pretty close together. So,
Yeah, so it's you and Mo, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
which really means Nick and Mo, if you want to get specific. So.
I don't want to get specific. I'll leave the specifics to you.
Christine, on the budget, on the line item, it says free cash to general stabilization fund. You use the 500,
Mhm.
which we have, because we have two schedules here, one with 200 and the other with 500. So you use the 500?
So we're using the 500, and I will venture to, not a betting woman, but if I was going to be, I would say the selectmen are going to increase that 500 when they meet on Tuesday and make a recommendation to the warrant committee to increase that. But we had not talked at the warrant committee going over the 500, so we felt comfortable putting that in there for you this evening.
Capiche.
So Christine, can you walk me through this process and what, you know, I mean, where the various pieces are and what's the determining factor is what the selectmen want? Is it tied to the percentages at the bottom, or what do we?
So the way the free cash works now, we would have an additional 789,994, where you see the excess shortfall in free cash.
Yes.
We can take that and appropriate that amount to stabilization and still meet our free cash policy.
Right.
Because I think, Bob, the weird thing about this spreadsheet is that if we take more of that free cash and basically take the 3.7 down to 2.5, it doesn't affect the percentage in the bottom half. It would still stay at that 8.43.
I mean, say that again.
Yeah,
Nick, do you want to try to explain it better than me?
you know what I like? Go ahead.
It's all, and when we think about our reserves, it's a big bucket of funds. Free cash is one of those funds. So is our general stabilization fund. So if we take money from one bucket, say free cash, and move it over to our general stabilization fund, it doesn't affect our total reserves. It only affects where in our reserves they lie. An appropriation out of stabilization takes a 2/3 vote. It's considered, you know, the rainy day fund. Free cash is a majority vote. And, you know, while we apply certain policies to it, it doesn't have, you know, that additional layer of rainy day stabilization like a general stabilization fund might.
So what would be the rationale for the selectmen wanting to protect me from myself? I mean, is that
Exactly. Yes, I think that's exactly it.
But you know, why? Given that it doesn't have any impact on the overall credit position, why wouldn't you want to maintain some flexibility there? That's a rhetorical question, perhaps, but I mean, given that it hasn't been proposed yet, but.
I guess I feel like, and Christine, correct me if I'm wrong, like one of the things that one of the reasons why for years we didn't need to necessarily have discussions about how much we had in reserves was because we had this large account that was dwindling down that had to do with the schools.
Yep.
And I think is it next year that it's gone? You're on mute.
Next
It's
year,
either
it
one of the
reduces.
Yeah,
by-
so I think because that's going away, we need to make sure we are keeping the base at a good level. Therefore, since we have extra free cash this year, it's a good opportunity to put it back into that base as a safeguard, because what we had always counted on to go towards our reserves was that school money that's now gone.
So money taken out of stabilization or money taken out of free cash, are the categories different, or is it just what it requires to get it
I think
out?
it's what it requires at a vote at town meeting to get it out.
But the categories would be the same.
I believe they're the same.
Well, maybe
Categories are the same.
I don't know what, I'm not sure I know what you are saying by categories.
Well, I'm saying if I had maybe I'll flip the question to you. If what are the situations under which money would be taken out of free cash or out of stabilization?
Well, for example, you're using free cash this year to fund our capital budget. You're funding stabilization, you're funding OPEB with free cash. The selectmen are trying to make sure we get away from using free cash to use it to balance the budget. So I think that's what, their concern was, putting more money into stabilization to build up those, quote unquote, rainy day funds or our reserve funds.
but
It
what's
makes it harder for us to balance the budget with $300,000 of free cash, which is what we're doing with this version.
Well,
But it seems to me we've been using free cash for years and years. You go back into the
True.
schedules there, and we've been using it every single year. I would think, I know we don't want to use it, But to just take it out and bring it back to the 2.5%, I was kind of happy. I looked at that and smiled. I said, okay, we're way above the 2.5%, and that's a good thing.
And they may decide on Tuesday not to put all of it. They may be comfortable with the 500. I know that Selectman Murby wanted to, at a minimum, wanted it at 400,000 to replenish what we didn't put in last year.
Well, it's really kind of two conversations, all right? I mean, on the one hand, bringing anything to a 2/3 vote is challenging. And the responsibility of the Warrant Committee, and this is, a Warrant Committee in the future, not just the current Warrant Committee, and the selectmen, I think that's a different conversation. I mean, nobody is being cavalier about using it. It's a question of, I'm all, it's a 50%, a 51% or a 66%, but it just seems like putting a 2/3 vote onto it is I don't know, like I said, protecting ourselves from ourselves, but.
It's not that high of a bar, Bob. When for capital borrowing, it needs to be a 2/3 majority, and that happens quite regularly. So it's not, I mean, that bar isn't that much higher. It does, in the credit rating, it does, they look at that slightly. It's available, it's reserves as the big bucket, but they do look at that in a different way. It's more protected than free cash. It can still be used for the same things in the end. It just requires a vote out from town meeting, just like free cash, but it can be used to stabilize the budget, for capital, for any other use.
Oh, I understand.
6 half dozen.
Well,
Right.
it's a 2/3 vote is a higher bar than a 51.
Yeah, it's a
It
higher
is.
bar.
Could,
I think basically the goal is, right, you don't try to go into it, you try to live within your budget.
Right.
And so I think by putting
Right.
it in stabilization, it just forces us to live within our budget. But we also have a lot more free cash right now than we've had in the last couple of years, which is, I think, why there's another opportunity to take the opportunity now to put it in, because we know that there's a lot of stimulus coming down the road. And so going into next budget season, we've got stimulus to deal with. We have the regular budget season, but we've also now made a decent dent in helping our long-term reserves get higher while we have the chance. We might not have this chance again for a while. I guess that's how I see it.
okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I fine. I think it's, I'm not a proponent of using free cash, don't get me wrong, so.
Would it be
Does then-
possible to
yeah,
go
go
through
ahead.
this schedule line by line, just
Okay,
quickly?
sure.
'Cause I understand, obviously, that you're starting with 3.3 million. And that includes the incremental Chapter 70 and unrestricted government aid and other things, I assume. But that's the starting point.
It doesn't.
And then we're backing out the
What-
million.
I think Christine wants to say something.
No.
What-
The $681,000 that was not spent in the government aid that came to us is not in this year's free cash. This is
Right, it's not in the
fiscal 20.
3.3. That
Oh,
comes in
that's
later in the
correct. That's
schedule.
correct. That'll hit this
681.
year.
Yeah, that 681 is in the fiscal year 21.
Correct.
Currently that we're in.
Okay, you're right.
So that'll be
Thank you.
reflected for next year. for fiscal
Right. So
year
that brings you to the 2,430,000, which would be the projected balance for this year. Right?
Right, because you've got the negative.
1,749,000 plus the 681 is the
Yeah.
2,430,000. That'll be the projected balance. And then the updated this is a separate reserve for the updated stabilization fund balance, 2.1.
Mhm.
So the 2.4 plus the 2.1, that's roughly what, 5.6 altogether. If I understand, that's on top of the general reserves down below of 5,000,005.
No,
Is
that's.
that part of it?
That's part of it. That's your.
But that already adds up to more than it. That's what I'm getting mixed up.
How about if Christine takes us through the schedule?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Go ahead.
Okay, so you have your fiscal year 20 certified free cash, which is the 3.3,
Yeah,
right? And we know that that number is exceedingly higher than we had in the past because of the budget freeze that we had in place and the cost savings we had with employment, and mainly attributed to the health insurance and the police department. We're taking 751,000 and transferring it to the new capital stabilization fund.
mhm,
We're funding our 10% increase for OPEB at the 42.5. We're transferring $500,000 into stabilization, and that is the $200,000 that we normally do, an additional $300,000 to make up for no deposit to stabilization last year when we didn't meet the policy. You're going to use $314,393 when you vote to balance this budget using the free cash. And the selectmen would like to point out they would like to use stimulus to cover that any place they can. So that your total free cash usage is the 1.6, which leaves you with the 1.749.
Can I stop you there with a
Correct.
question?
Sure.
There was some talk, I thought, and this is a relatively minor item, but a catch up in OPEB.
So I believe, Sharon, you had a conversation with Gus, and Gus indicated that he was fine with only doing the 42,500 into OPEB, but given our actuarial numbers that came back, he was fine with additional money going into stabilization and not going into OPEB this year. So he was fine with just a 42.5.
Okay.
Where he's the chairman of the OPEB committee, I would lean on him.
That is what he said. And I was actually surprised because I had
I was too.
originally said to double the OPEB because I thought that's what he wanted. And then he changed his mind. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
yes.
So that reflects the 500,000 versus the 400,000, which we had originally talked about.
Yeah.
Okay, then the unappropriated state aid, which is the 681, 689, which is not until fiscal year 23, 22. You're not going to get that until the end of this year.
end of this year.
Right.
Yeah,
That's not included in there. What we did is we included this, if you recall Sharon's purple spreadsheet, we included this knowing that this is a guaranteed amount of money coming back to us at the end of the year. So we know we have that. So we use that in our calculations for meeting the reserve policy.
But that number will be in the fiscal year 2021 certified free cash.
Correct.
Okay.
We know right now that we're, before we certify any free cash, before we talk about turnbacks from anybody else, we know we have that 681 coming to us.
Right.
Because that's going to close the free cash.
Is it fair to say, or is it correct to say it is a turn back from the school department?
No,
No.
it is
What is
turn
that?
back.
It's like extra income.
It's revenue. It's additional
Okay.
revenue that we did not spend.
Okay, so it's already in-house.
Yes, it's coming to us. Similar to local receipts. So all of our revenue are estimates. So when we estimate what our local receipts are, you want your local receipts to come in higher than what you estimated because you don't
Mhm.
want to have to cover that with free cash. So it's a similar revenue source like that. That's how we're treating it.
Okay.
so where was the incremental chapter 70 then? Is that
That's-
part of that?
That's
681?
part of that.
That is the unappropriated state
That's-
aid, which is the 681,
Part
680.
of the, or as well as the unrestricted, okay.
Yep.
That's the sum of the two, okay,
Yes, correct. I think it's 560 and 115, I think.
right.
Okay. So then our total free cash plus the state aid and reserves comes up with your balance of the 2.43. And Nick, this is your spreadsheet, so stop me at any time if I'm,
Oh, good.
okay.
He's just
And
watching.
just for the record, the conversations that we're having now about how much money to put into stabilization and free cash are basically the discussion that Nick and I had this afternoon for an hour and a half, talking about all the things that you're talking about, anticipating this conversation, so.
There you go.
Okay, so then your updated stabilization fund balance is the 2.1. Then your expenditures at this point are 65,637.
Can I stop you there and ask you how you got that off the detail?
We back out some of the costs that aren't supported by the general fund, and in our revenue and expense total, there are different things of money moving from one to the fund to the other, which aren't actual real expenditures. So we back out some of those to arrive at what the town is actually going to be looking at spending next year, not including some of those moving from one to the other.
Thanks.
Yep. So enterprise fund, some of the revolving fund stuff, and then some of the stabilization fund movements all come into that.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. Okay, and then we start with looking at free cash as your percentage of expenditures. Two and a half % of your expenditure would be 1.6. So right now we have in excess of that 1.6, we have 789,994.
Is that the sum that the selectmen may put into stabilization?
They could, that would be available to them to put in there if they wanted to and still meet the policy. But again, it's this conversation of it's the warrant committee's budget and the warrant committee is making a recommendation at town meeting. So this is one of the things we're going to have like maybe a little, I think Nick called it today, a summit. I'm going to call it a down and figure out exactly the process of how we're moving this forward for next year. So
Okay.
His summit sounds much better than my sit down. Just saying. So then below that, you're looking at your reserves total. And we are looking at the 7.5% of expenditures. I'm sorry, no, we're not. We're looking at 8.43. Sorry.
So
yeah, that's where we are.
what are the numbers that add up to 5,530,000?
Sure. It's the balance remaining in that MSBA reimbursement account, which is about 583,000. Then we have our operating reserve fund balance that will be approved with the operating budget, which is 150,000. And then the other figure is we have another reserve account that is comprised of various interest revenues, interest earnings on the MSBA reimbursement fund. So that's about 176,000. So that's how you get to 5.53.
So yeah, okay, so the 583, the 150, the 176 is in top of the 2.4 million and the 2,190,000?
Correct.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Sure. I still got to work on the most clear way to show this.
There you go. Just noticing that it's like 1 minute to 7. Do we feel comfortable voting on this, or do you want to be heard and we can vote on it on Monday if you want to continue the discussion?
Well, I think the explanation is fine. I don't think I understood the summit discussion.
Well, that's what I was kind of thinking. Maybe we be to be heard. And what Christine pointed out to me last year was that we were to be heard on this budget last year. And Mike just said something nice about the fact that the warrant committee is committed to a balanced budget without an override. And we hadn't voted yet. So if we would like to do that, I can do that. And then we could talk about this on Monday and maybe get more clarity on if we need a summit with the selectmen.
Yeah, I mean, I think
That's a nice way
if I
to-
understand it, the question is how much moves from free cash into the.
So let me just say one thing, Bob. When I
Yeah.
meant the summit, I meant like in September. That's after this budget, talking about how we're moving forward and how we want to do the budget process in September. Is it the selectmen making the recommendation and the warrant committee carrying it forward? It's just a process summit. And I was being a little tongue in cheek when I said summit.
Okay, but that, I mean, I just remember in the past, that thing has gone back and forth, and I think, okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
I
would-
kind of feel like we need
I
a little
would
bit more
recommend to
discussion
be
on
heard.
the stabilization piece, maybe. So maybe we do the to be heard for now and we discuss Monday.
I agree with that. Do you want to
Okay.
take a vote?
I don't think we need to take a vote.
Okay.
I think we just won't have voted yet. How's that?
But no matter what
Okay.
decision you make on the stabilization, you're still presenting forward a balanced budget.
That is correct. Yes.
That's the key piece.
And if I forget to say that when we get to this number, someone please say something.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. And we'll have our discussion prior to the selectmen's meeting, right?
Right. Yeah. Because we meet on Monday and I think they're meeting Tuesday, right, Christine?
Yeah, because this seems to me it's a distinction without a difference, and I just want to make sure we don't, but maybe I'm missing something.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Okay. So it's 7:02. So Christine, do I read this fancy thing you sent me?
If you can read that and open the public hearing.
Okay. Do I have to hit a gavel or something? Okay. Um, okay. So to open the public hearing, the notice reads, notice is hereby given that the Warrant Committee will hold a public hearing under the provisions of Section 2-9 of the Town Charter to inform the residents of the town of its proposed recommendations and to hear testimony and arguments before publication of its final recommendations. Said hearing to be held Thursday, April 1st, 2021 at 7 p.m. Due to COVID restrictions, this hearing will take place virtually via Zoom. Please consult the town's website for instructions for participation in the hearing. Signed, yours truly, Sharon Tatro. So from that, I think that from a process standpoint, and Christine, tell me if this is good or bad. What I was thinking I would do is I'm going to read the articles, and the ones that are 3 pages long, I'm only going to summarize the beginning. And then say whether or not we voted to recommend or dismiss. And then should people put their hands up out in the participant gallery if they would like to ask a question or
Yes, I
make
think
a comment?
if anybody wants to ask a question, just raise your hand and we can recognize you to speak.
Okay. And I may pinch it on how I'm going to summarize some of these planning articles because we'll just see when we get there. Okay, so I'm just, oh, and if anybody wants to follow along, is this posted somewhere?
Yes, it's posted on the 2021 annual town meeting website.
Okay. All right, so with that, okay, so I'm just going to read from the top. On Monday, the 17th of May, commencing at 5 p.m., the following articles will be acted on outside on the Calvin Fisher Field at the Amos Clark Kingsbury High, located at 88R South Street in Medfield. Article 1, to see if the town will vote to accept the reports of the several town officers for the past year. And the Warrant Committee recommends passage. Does anybody have questions on number 1? Okay. Article 2, to see if the town will vote to accept the following named sums by perpetual trust funds for the care of the lots of the Vine Lake Cemetery, the interest thereof as may be necessary for said care. There is a chart posted that I was not going to read through, but the Warrant Committee recommends passage. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to set expenditure limits for 53E and a half revolving funds established under the Code of the Town of Medfield, Chapter 117, departmental revolving funds for fiscal year 21 as follows. And there is a chart that adds up to $795,000. And the Warrant Committee recommends passage. Any questions? Okay, seeing none. Article 4, to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money from the Public Education and Government Access and Cable Related Fund to Medfield TV for the purpose of providing local cable access services, equipment, and programming for the town of Medfield, or do or act anything in relation hereto. And the Warrant Committee recommends passage. I just saw a hand up. Did someone? It flashed by me. Okay, I'm going to assume it was an accident. If you think of it again, raise your hand and we can go back. Okay, Article 5, to see if the town will vote to fix the salary and compensation of the following elected officers: moderator, town clerk, selectmen, assessors, school committee, trustees of the public library, Park and Rec Commissioners, Planning Board, Housing Authority, and Trust Fund Commissioners to do or act or anything here too. There is also a chart. It simply says that the town clerk is 70,144. The 3 selectmen and the 3 assessors are 900 and everybody else is 0. The Warrant Committee recommends passage. Any questions? Okay. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to amend the personal administration plan and classification of positions and pay schedule effective July 1, 2020, is set out in the warrant. And then there are multiple pages. And per our vote earlier, the Warrant Committee recommends passage. Does anyone have any questions? Article 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds sums of money requested by the selectmen or any other town officer, board, commission, or committee to defray operating expenses of the town for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, or such other sums as the town may determine as required by Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 108, or do or act anything in relation hereto. And this requires a 2/3 vote, and this is the operating budget, which the committee has not voted on. We are to be heard on that with the distinction that we are committed to a balanced budget without an override. And to be continued discussion on Monday if you would like to come listen. Any questions? Okay. Was I supposed to say something about committing to stabilization? Nobody reminded me.
Forgot what I was supposed to remind you about.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, you can roll back the tape, but we are committed to having a balanced budget, and the continuation of the discussion on Monday is basically about a stabilization transfer. So not any specific budget. Okay, so now Article 8, to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money and transfer said sum from the Municipal Buildings Capital Stabilization Fund created under Article 43 of the 2018 annual town meeting for the purposes and amounts as set forth below. And then there is a chart that adds up to $1,090,500, and the Warrant Committee recommends passage. Are there any questions? Okay. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to transfer a sum of money received from the Massachusetts School Building Authority for reimbursements for the Dale Street feasibility study and a sum of money from the fiscal year 2021 emergency repairs fund to the Municipal Buildings Capital Stabilization Fund, or take any other action in relation thereto. Warrant Committee, this reads Warrant Committee will be heard, but I believe that we passed that. I think it's the Warrant Committee recommends passage. Christine, you're.
I had a question on that one. My sheet had will be heard, but I believe you did vote on this.
I believe that we voted to pass this. Does anybody disagree with that statement? Okay. Any questions? Okay. Article 10, to see if the town will vote to establish a stabilization fund to be designated the Capital Stabilization Fund, the purpose of which shall be to fund capital projects and the debt service related to capital projects, including equipment, vehicles, repairs to equipment and vehicles, public works improvements, and other non-municipal building and non-school building capital projects, as authorized by GL Chapter 40, Section 5B, and vote to raise and appropriate a sum of money for this fund from the tax levy by transfer from available funds or by any combination of these methods as set out below, or do or act anything in relation thereto. And so right now it says the free cash will be $751,000. The Warrant Committee recommends passage. Does anyone have any questions? Article 11, to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money to pay costs of the capital projects described below, including all costs incidental and related thereto, to determine whether this appropriation shall be raised by borrowing, taxes, transfers, grants, and or otherwise, or to take any other action relative thereto. And then there is a chart that adds up all of the various articles or items to be purchased, as well as their sources. And the warrant committee recommends passage. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, Article 12, to see if the town will vote to authorize under General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 21C, upon the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen, the following lease purchase financing agreements for the acquisition of equipment that may be acquired through the issuance of debt under GL Code 44 or improvement of a capital asset, the improvement of which may be financed by the issuance of debt under GL C44. The term of such agreement not to exceed the usual life of the equipment or improvements as determined by the Board of Selectmen, and to authorize the departments specified below to enter into such agreements on behalf of the town and to approve appropriation for the first year payments of the agreements as stated below, or do or take any action relative thereto. And this chart is empty as of right now, and it says the warrant committee will be heard. But I believe that we passed this.
No,
No?
you're actually going to be heard on this because we may not need to use this article. If we're able to pass the capital budget and use the stimulus funding as laid out, we won't need to lease any of the vehicles. So this will be heard and hopefully
okay.
dismissed. Yep.
Okay, then we will be heard because this is changing. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money to pay costs of constructing and reconstructing water wells and constructing a water treatment facility at the site of so-called Well 3 and Well 4, located off of Elm Street, including costs for engineering and design, equipping the water treatment plant, connecting the water treatment plant to the water and sewer systems, and all other costs incidental and related thereto, to determine whether this appropriation shall be raised by borrowing or otherwise, or to take any other action relative thereto. The warrant committee recommends passage. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Article 14, to see if the town will vote to raise, appropriate, or transfer from available funds the sum of an unknown number for the water enterprise fund and the sewer enterprise fund as follows. These numbers are not available, therefore the warrant committee will be heard. Does anyone have any questions? Article 15, to see if the town will vote to transfer $1,471 in funds received from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation for the town's share of the fee charged for Uber, Lyft, or other ride-sharing services originating in the town. Said funds to be used for road and or sidewalk improvements, or do or act anything in relation thereto. And the warrant committee recommends passage. Anyone? Okay. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to dispose of by lease the whole or any portion thereof of parcels of land off North Meadows Road, shown on the Board of Assessors map as map 48, lot 27, map 48, lot 31, and map 48, lot 32, for a period not to exceed 30 years for the purposes of constructing a solar energy system and accessory equipment and facilities, on such terms and conditions as the Board of Selectmen deem to be in the best interest of the town of Medfield, and if deemed necessary or desirable, to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the Massachusetts General Court to enact special legislation authorizing the town of Medfield to enter into such disposition or do or act anything in relation thereto. The warrant committee recommends passage. Anyone? Article 17, to determine whether the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to dispose of by lease the town garage roofed together with accessory land on a portion of parcels of land off North Meadows Road, shown on the Board of Assessors maps as map 42, lot 140, and map 48, lot 27, for a period not to exceed 30 years for the purposes of constructing a solar energy system and accessory equipment and facilities, on such terms and conditions as the Board of Selectmen deem to be in the best interest of the town of Medfield, or do or act anything in relation thereto. The warrant committee recommends passage. Any questions? Article 18, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen pursuant to MGL Chapter 59, Section 38H, enter into power purchase agreements for power generated by solar energy systems to be constructed at the Medfield DPW Town Garage at 55 North Meadows Road, former landfill, or any other solar energy systems on town-owned land or buildings, or do or act anything in relation thereto. The Warrant Committee recommends passage. Any questions? Article 19, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to negotiate and enter into tax agreements for personal property taxes for solar energy systems at the following locations: Kingsbury Club, Assessors Map 56, Parcel 45, 106 Adams Street, Assessors Map 6, Parcel 24, Town of Medfield Landfill, Assessors Map 48, Lots 27, 31, and 32, in the Medfield Town Garage, Assessors Map 42, Lot 140, Map 48, Lot 27, and any other solar energy systems to be sited at other locations in the town of Medfield, or do or act anything in relation thereto. And the Warrant Committee recommends passage. Article 20, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to dispose of a parcel of town-owned land shown as Parcel B, Hinkley North, on a plan of land captioned "Approval Not Required," Survey Medfield Senior Center, Medfield, Massachusetts, prepared by DePietri Engineering, 990 Washington Street, Suite 101A, Dedham, Mass. 02026, dated June 26, 2018, and recorded at Norfolk Registry of Deeds in Plan Book 672 at page 75, containing 4.8 acres, according to said plan, together with access and utility easements to the ownership, care, and custody of the Medfield Affordable Housing Trust, for the ultimate purpose of disposing by sale or ground lease to a private or nonprofit developer pursuant to the provisions of GL Chapter 30B, Section 16, on such terms and conditions as the Medfield Affordable Housing Trust determines to be in town's interest to develop housing consistent with the 2016 Medfield Housing Production Plan or future revisions, and if deemed necessary or desirable, to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to enact special legislation to enable said development and/or construction, or do or act anything in relation thereto. And I'm sorry, there is not, it doesn't say what we voted. I need to look it up.
You haven't taken a vote on Article 20 because the Affordable Housing Trust is going to meet next week, I believe, for a vote to withdraw this article.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, so Article 21, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to initiate the process of seeking to aggregate electrical load through a community choice aggregation program and contract for Medfield residents to authorize by MGL 164, Section 134, and through CCA decrease greenhouse emissions for the town's residents by pursuing a percentage of Class 1 designated renewable energy that is greater than that required by the Massachusetts Renewable Performance Portfolio Standard, or do or act anything in relation thereto. The Warrant Committee recommends passage. Does anyone have any questions? Article 22, to see if the town will adopt the following resolution. Greenhouse gas content of our atmosphere has increased alarmingly as a result of human activities with negative impact on our climate, as evidenced by rising temperatures, rising sea level, and ocean acidity, increased flooding with more intense and frequent storms, droughts, forest fires, other unpredictable weather patterns, and increased health risks. Therefore, the town of Medfield supports the goal of eliminating or offsetting all greenhouse gas emissions originating in the town by the year 2050 or earlier, known hereafter as the Net Zero 2050 goal, and encourages the Board of Selectmen, all town boards and committees, and residents and businesses to take action in the furtherance of Medfield's climate goal by developing a net zero action plan by March 2022 that outlines specific strategies and sets measurable, attainable, and realistic interim targets aligned with the state and federal goals, roadmaps, and incentives, or do or act anything in relation thereto. The Warrant Committee recommends passage. questions? Okay, Article 23, to see if the town of Medfield will vote to rezone parcel ID 43-030 37 Janes Avenue from business industrial to business, as shown on the map titled Proposed Rezone of 37 Janes Avenue, dated 6/3/19, which is on file with the town clerk and the planning department, and to amend the zoning map accordingly or do or act or anything thereto. The warrant committee recommends passage. Any questions? Article 24, to see if the town of Medfield will vote to amend the Medfield Town Code Chapter 300, zoning attachment 1, table of use regulations by adding the new section as follows. And basically there is a no under every, oh my gosh, what is the name? Every section in town against the adult only retail tobacco and or vape store. And then there, let's see, okay. And the definition of an adult only retail tobacco and vape store says an establishment whose primary purpose is to sell or offer for sale, but not for resale, tobacco products and tobacco paraphernalia and or any electronic nicotine delivery systems such as e-cigarettes and vaping products, and in which the entry of minor persons under the minimum legal sales age is prohibited at all times, and that checks customer identification for age verification and is required to have a valid permit for the retail sale of tobacco and nicotine products issued by the Medfield Board of Health and do or act anything in relation thereto. And the warrant committee had recommended passage of that. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Article 25, to see if the town of Medfield will vote to amend the Medfield Town Code Chapter 300, zoning 1, table of use regulations by adding the new section as follows. This has to do with food trucks and mobile food vendors. In zones A, RE, RT, RS, RU, they are all no. In B, BI, and IE, it is PB. And Christine, I believe that means to get a special permit from the planning board is what PB means. Is that right? I think. Okay. And so the warrant committee recommends passage on that. Does anyone have any questions? All right. Article 26, to see if the town will vote to amend the town code of Medfield, Mass, Chapter 300 zoning, Article 6, area height and bulk regulations, paragraph 6.2, area regulations by adding new subsection 4 as follows, and is shown in bold. This goes on for a bit. The section that is shown in bold is number 4. Decks, porches, or similar features are subject to the requirements of the table of area regulations adopted in accordance with section 300-6.2 of the Medfield zoning bylaw, except that the Board of Appeals may, in districts RE, RT, RS, and RU, by special permit, as specified in section 300-14.10E, allow a lesser setback not to exceed 6 feet less than the required front or rear setback for the zoning district. The proposal must also comply with all of the dimensional requirements, including lot coverage. Any special permit that may be granted may be conditioned that any portion of the structure within the required setback may never be fully enclosed as an expansion of the dwelling. And the warrant committee recommends passage. Any questions? Okay. Article 27, to see if the town will vote to amend the Town Code of Medfield, Mass, Chapter 300 zoning area, Article 6, area height and bulk regulations, paragraph 6.2, area regulations K as follows. In any R district, permitted accessory buildings shall conform to the following provisions. They shall not be less than 60 feet from any street lot line, except for a garage on a corner lot, which shall be set back at least the same distance as the front yard setback to the adjacent lot. And they shall be set back from side and rear lot lines at least the distance specified in the table of area regulations, provided that one accessory structure will not exceed 200 square feet and not exceeding 12 feet in height, shall be allowed to be located in the rear yard with a setback to the rear lot line of no less than 20 feet and side lot line of no less than 12 feet. The Warrant Committee recommends passage. Any questions? Article 28, to see if the town will vote to amend the Town Code of Medfield, Mass, Chapter 300 zoning, Article 19 by deleting the existing section in its entirety and replacing it as follows. This all has to do with the Solar Voltaic Facilities Overlay District, which will be called PVOD. If you have a copy of this, this goes for the next couple of pages that I think I'm going to save all of us from me trying to read. And the Warrant Committee recommends passage on this very lengthy article, which, if you are following along at home, goes all the way down. My goodness. Into page 30. Are there any questions? Okay, so Article 29, to see if the town will vote to amend the Town of Medfield Article 150-3 Historic District boundaries by adding as follows. E, Peak House Historic District. The boundaries are hereby established as shown on the map filed with the Planning Board and the Mass Historical Commission on February 2nd, 2021, which accompanies and is hereby declared to be part of the bylaw or do or act anything in relation thereto. This is a to be heard. Even though it says recommends passage, we have not heard from them yet.
Not heard from them yet. Nope.
Any questions? Okay. Article 30, to see if the town will vote to recommend that the Medfield School Committee and Medfield School Building Committee amend its proposal to the Massachusetts School Building Authority to keep Dale Street School at its current site for grades 4-5, as was implied in the 2018 town meeting warrant article that funded the feasibility study, and to reevaluate this certified enrollment projection provided in October 2018 so that it is based on actual student numbers. The Warrant Committee is to be heard on that. We still have a meeting or two to devote to that. Any questions? Okay. Article 31, to see if the town will vote to establish a committee charged with creating a Medfield town bylaw to govern school projects. The School Building Committee appointment process led by town moderator in keeping with Medfield public school policy and the engagement of citizens at large. We are also to be heard. Discussions have not finished. Any questions? Article 32, to see if the town will vote to amend the code of the town of Medfield to amend Chapter 235 Stormwater Management as follows. And then I'm going to save us all from me reading these next several pages. It goes all the way down to page 34. The Warrant Committee recommends passage. Does anyone have any questions on this? Article 33, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $16,000 and determine in what manner said sum shall be raised for the purpose of funding the Affordable Housing Trust for the purposes of administration planning and technical assistance expenses, or do or act anything in relation thereto. The Warrant Committee recommended dismissal, not on the merits of the article, on the town budget thoughts.
And I was incorrect. The Affordable Housing Trust is meeting this evening, any moment now. I thought the meeting had been postponed, where I believe they will be taking up withdrawal of this. Article.
Withdrawal. Okay. So we are dismissal with no hard feelings. That's our caveat with this. Okay. Article 34, to see if the town will vote in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 40, Section 15C, to designate each of the following roadways in the town of Medfield as a scenic road: Elm, Plain, Farm, Nebo, and Millbrook Road. To do or act anything in relation thereto. We have not voted on this yet, so we are to be heard. Anyone have any questions? Article 35, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds or otherwise provide a sum of money to implement any collective bargaining agreements between the town of Medfield and the Medfield Police League, or do or act anything in relation thereto. And the Warrant Committee recommends passage. Any questions? Okay. Article 36, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds to otherwise provide a sum of money to implement any collective bargaining agreements between the town of Medfield and the Medfield Fire Union, or do or act or anything in relation thereto. We also recommend passage. Any questions? Article 37, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds or otherwise provide a $1,500 retroactive one-time COVID-19 stipend for non-union frontline town employees as set out by the Board of Selectmen, or do or act anything in relation thereto. And the Warrant Committee recommends passage on that. Anyone have any questions? Okay. And Article 38, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds to otherwise provide a sum of money for the purpose of paying the following prior year bills incurred in FY16 in the amount of $165, and in FY 2020 in the amount of $177.08. And we need a 4/5 vote for this. I don't think,
Correct.
yes. And did we vote on this?
You have not voted on this.
I
yet.
don't think we had yet, because we
Yeah.
didn't have the numbers yet. Yeah, so we
Wait
are
for
to
the
be heard.
final. Yep.
It should be a very stimulating discussion in a future meeting. Any question? And Article 39 is a free cash transfer that we are also to be heard on, since that number is not yet determined. And that is the warrant.
And I believe the moderator has some words to say as well. So let me promote Scott.
Hi, Scott.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. And I guess I should start by thanking my friends and neighbors in Medfield for my reelection as town moderator on Monday. You know how I feel. Our community is a very special place, and it is an honor to be the moderator. The best part about being town moderator is my opportunity to engage with so many of the people who contribute to the vitality and to the health and the caring, and particularly over the last year, the forward progress of town. So, and the forward progress of our community. Many of the people who I'm talking about are the people who are either right on the screen with me right now, or people who I'm sure are tuning into this Warrant Committee hearing. I really do want to express my sincere appreciation, really on behalf of the town. I guess I get to speak a little bit on behalf of the town. But particularly for this Warrant Committee, these 7 members have really provided an extraordinarily organized and diligent and thorough review of the articles. And I really personally, I really appreciate it. And I know that the town is very thankful for the work that you guys have been doing week in and week out over the course of the entire winter. I also want to thank our Board of Selectmen. Congratulations to Pete. I've been tuning into a lot of Board of Selectmen meetings, and the board has demonstrated also an extraordinary service on behalf of the town. And with them as representatives in the Warrant Committee, you know, I do need to express my thanks and appreciation to all of the people who have served on the boards and the committees of the town over the past year, and also to the professional staff and the town administration and all the department heads and all of their teams. It's really been amazing to watch the collaboration and the communication under difficult circumstances. The town has been challenged in
Oh.
really unprecedented ways. And so I think as we approach the town meeting, it's, a particularly important time for us to continue our tradition within our legislative branch of open and respectful dialogue, a deliberative and fair process, and the committed and collaborative engagement by so many. So speaking to the town meeting, I think that the word is out there that we've established a date. The selectmen have established the date and the timing of the annual town meeting. We will convene on Monday, May 17th at 5 p.m. It's interesting that I went back and I looked at our special town meeting on October 29th of 2018. The only article that I've ever sponsored in all the years that I've been doing this was an article to change in the charter the date of our annual town meeting from the last Monday in April to the first Monday of May. And when we voted on that at that special town meeting, it would be effective in 2020. And so since this article became effective, we've held our town meeting scheduled for the first Monday of May on the 27th of June, and now this year on the third Monday of May. So not as we would have planned, people plan, God laughs, and that seems to be what has happened to us here when it comes to scheduling a meeting. But this year we have chosen the first Monday of May, at 5 o'clock, go forward with the articles that have just been reviewed by the Warrant Committee. I want to provide guidance, as I do sometimes, of our need to be prepared for a possible adjournment of the meeting. And if we did adjourn the meeting, it would be to Tuesday, the 18th of May. Why would we need to provide that guidance? I'm providing that guidance on kind of three levels this year. One is the number of articles. We have 39 articles. We have kind of whittled down what had started with 50 articles. And so I think we now we're at a kind of a more manageable number of articles and a higher likelihood of completing them in one meeting. But we do have weather considerations in May. We're not indoors. And so I guess I will maybe have to be looking at weather and making calls. The temperature over the last 3 years on the 17th of May at 5 o'clock was 55 degrees, 57 degrees, and 60 degrees. So not as comfortable as it is in the gym usually, although in 2017 it was 92 degrees in Medfield on the 17th of May, and the average temperature that day was 77. So let's hope we can harken back to that particular day. But beyond the weather, the other factor is that, last year we operated with a reduced quorum. We narrowed our agenda. We did the right thing appropriately. We addressed largely the critical fiscal and operational issues of the town. And, we have articles on this year's agenda, however, that require, kind of the usual treatment that we provide, which is, thorough dialogue and debate and deliberation. So we'll have to evaluate that. So between the number of articles, the pace at which we're proceeding, the need for dialogue and debate and further deliberation, and the weather, we will make a judgment on the 17th of May whether we can complete all of our business on that particular evening. If we can't, we would adjourn to the next night. If we have weather considerations that require the postponement of the town meeting, then we are also holding, I think, Christine, I know we talked about this at one point, that the following week would be available to us. One of the reasons that we didn't do it the following week is that if we had to postpone it, that we would be into the Memorial Day weekend. So, those are some of the considerations that I'm going to be working with, and I hope that everybody will, bear with me as I make the best judgments about really trying to get this meeting done. But I don't feel like it's a meeting that that we can speed through or should speed through as we kind of did last year, because of the need in the town to have a community dialogue about a lot of important issues that we know are on our plate. So we'll try to address that appropriately. Logistics. I think the logistics will be very similar to last year. Last year, we did have a reduced quorum, so we were able to conduct our, our town meeting with about 140 people in attendance. And, we have a quorum of 250 people. And I would guess, based on past experience, that a meeting with the agenda that we have this year, on average, we might get from 400 to 450 people. So if you socially distance those folks across the field, if you remember what it looked like in our field last year, we'll have a very big expanse of people on the field. So, we'll do our very best to manage that. There will be a lot of publicity and a lot of guidance coming from Christine's office, coming from the Board of Selectmen, coming from myself about how we're going to conduct this meeting as safely as we possibly can, as appropriately, as reasonably, but give everybody the same opportunity we like to do to participate, in this as a legislative body, and to do all of the things that a good legislative body should do. One of the things that we don't have the capability of being able to do on the field is to be able to have a screen for presentations. So we will be asking people who might normally be requesting of me to be able to do a presentation, to use handouts. And for all of those folks that would be preparing handouts, please reach out to me. I'll provide you some guidance as to what we would expect by those handouts. We would like to see them and review them no later than Friday, the 7th of May. So we would have an opportunity to be able to review those with you by that date. And then we will set up a system whereby the handouts can be distributed to the attendees at the town meeting. Other than that, I guess I would ask if there are any questions about this year's town meeting, or any issues that anybody wants to raise as we look back a year to last June and the town meeting, our first ever, as far as I'm aware of, town meeting, or at least in hundreds of years that have been held outside. And I'm always happy to field questions, but also to listen to anybody in town talk about how we can do a better job to make the town meeting a more effective legislative grouping. Is there anybody, Christine, that has a question to ask?
Doesn't look like it.
No, good.
My only question, Scott, is someone inviting Mike Pastore to catch the flag again.
I know. Well, we will definitely, that will be one logistical difference. We will do something a little different with the flags than we did last year. That was a disaster averted by the peripheral vision and the quick reaction of Mike. It was really
Yeah, I'm not as confident in my spidey reflexes as he had. So
well, and the ability to be able to continue on
that's right,
without pause while catching a flag. It would have been but yeah, thank you. We'll make sure that we note that around the flags.
I think you did a great job last year. So
it worked out well. This year I will not be on crutches or in a cast. So as far as I know, knock on wood, we still have 6 weeks. But
Christina, are you guys considering doing little groups of a couple with the chairs if people want? Like, I know that's how they fit more. When they did the high school graduation, they did like pods of 4 when that families sat together. Are you going to try to just stay all singles?
It's Scott and I met on Monday, and then Amy and I met on Tuesday to talk about it. In order to fit the number of people we're expecting, they all have to be single chairs and stay where they are on the field. So.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Well, thanks again to everybody. Thanks again, particularly to this warrant committee. And look forward to be interacting with everybody over the next 5 or 6 weeks. I'm sure there's always activity as we lead up to the town meeting. And please, anybody reach out to me directly or reach out to me through Christine or Nick. And I look forward to seeing everybody on the 17th of May.
Great. Thanks.
Just my reminder to both of you, we are going to print within the next few days for the warrant report. So I need the town moderator's annual letter. And I need the chair of the warrant committee's message.
I have to write something.
Yeah, so we can chat about it tomorrow or next Monday, but
okay. Forgot about that. Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks again, everybody.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Maybe I can get Bob to write it for me. I tell you. Okay,
can
so
talk.
do we
We
do
can,
we fish? Go ahead, Bob.
I said, you and I can talk. Go ahead.
Nice. That's not a no. Might be an April Fool's Day joke, but so do we have to officially close the hearing and then can we go back to our meeting for a little bit, or is the hearing just done? How does
Yeah,
that work?
You can close the public hearing and go back to your regular meeting if you would like. That's fine.
Okay. All right, so we're going to close the public hearing. We're going to go back to our regular meeting. So it is 7:45. So I don't know if people want to continue any of our discussion before, or if we just want to do Newton's minute and call it an earlier night. Bob was shaking his head on the earlier night thing. So do we want to just do Newton's?
We are meeting on Monday, right?
We are meeting on Monday. Yes, we are meeting on Monday. And so far, the only topics that we have for Monday is operating budget and if any of those other articles, there's only a couple that we haven't voted on in particular that maybe we would have information on. So we don't have a big agenda for Monday. So, and then we can talk about collecting your questions for the citizen petition. So do we want to do minutes then?
Yeah.
Okay. Did everyone have a chance to read Newton's weekly novel?
I just gotta say, you do a great job, Newton. You really do. I have
Thank you,
to-
Bob.
Very impressive in
Yeah.
terms of your
Ditto.
thorough and
I second that.
point, I'll tell you.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Motion to approve the March 25th, 2021 Warrant Committee meeting minutes as submitted.
Second.
Yeah, okay. All right, so Bob,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes,
Newton,
Yes.
and Jeremy.
Yes.
And I am also a yes. Okay, so is there anything else anybody wants to talk about tonight, or we want to call it a night and we'll finish everything on Monday? Sounds
Motion to
like
adjourn.
Bob's favorite motion is in order. Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Christine,
yes.
Newton,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes.
Yes.
And I am also a yes. So it's 7:49 and I'll see you guys on Monday.
Thank you, Sharon.
All
Great.
right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Have a
Okay.
good night.
Night all.
Bye.